welcome back to another episode of Old Fiddles New Life. Today we're going to be talking about an old fiddle, and it indeed is an old fiddle. This connects with the last video that I did about the viola, and I mentioned Russell Flagg. Russell Flagg was a dear friend of mine, the principal violist for the New Orleans Symphony Orchestra for 32 years, something like that. And Russell's gone now. I think he died, I can't remember. I think it was 2004. Anyway, I spent a lot of time with him, going to his house there on Cornhill Road, and listening to him play and talking violins and talking about different violins that I was working on and so forth. And I brought him this fiddle that I'm talking about right now, he played it, and I was astonished. I did not anticipate that kind of sound out of it. I found it a bit harsh, kind of had an edge to it. I'll tell you what, Russ got that in his hands, and he started playing it, and I was, whoa, what an instrument. And he knew where I was at, in terms of my playing ability, and I was playing a lot with Maynard's old-time fiddlers at the time, and I play fiddle music. I did real good improv harmony with a lot of the guys in the group, but he knew kind of what I could do and what I couldn't do, and he played this, and I was just, like I said, blown away by the sound, and he just handed it back to me. He said that's one you can grow into. I said, okay. Yeah, all these years later, I'm just now picking it up again, and I'm thinking maybe it's time I could start growing into it. I don't know if I'll play this one. What I'm going to do right now, really, is just spend some time cleaning it. It hasn't been cleaned in many, many years. I was looking at the scroll, and it's really dirty. Once I clean this, then we're going to go do some violin forensics, or fiddle forensics, as I called it last time, I think. And talk about this instrument, because it's kind of it's kind of a mystery, although not. The more I looked at it this time, even after getting it out after all these years of not using it, I was really just surprised at how much it reads like a book. You can really understand who made it, not who necessarily, but that it indeed was made by one maker. For years I thought it was somebody started it and another person finished it. That's not the case. One person did the whole job. But we'll talk about that when we get to the forensics. And for right now, we're going to do some cleaning on this. And I will say right now, I'm using Wake violin polish, which I make myself. And I'm going to be doing some cleaning on this. And one of the things I will say right up front before we do anything: don't ever, ever, ever put violin polish on a rag or on a piece of paper towel and touch it to the strings. The strings are sacred. They stay completely clean. If you're going to do anything with strings, you can take a little bit of alcohol and put it on a paper towel, tip the violin upside down so that there's no chance that the alcohol will get on the surface of the violin, and wipe the strings from down here like this. That way, the strings are getting completely squeaky clean and nice, so that they'll be ready to take the next bow that goes over them with some nice rosin on it. But in the meantime, don't ever, ever get alcohol anywhere near a violin top or any kind of varnish. Just bad news. Or for that matter, don't take even violin polish. Do not touch the strings. They are, like I said, they are for one thing, actually two things only: your bow and your fingers, and that's it. And just try to keep your hands off with any kind of thing that would be detrimental to the playing of the instrument. Okay, I'm going to get started here. I'm going to wet up take a paper towel, get some Wake violin polish, and begin to work on this. I'm going to start on the back just because it's easier to show here. And I'm just going to, have to get my glasses on for this. Okay. I haven't cleaned this in many, many years. And the Wake violin polish does a really super job. I usually do two levels of this. The first level I use, go ahead and put the polish on and see if you can see the sheen on that. It's now that's wet with the violin polish. I'm going to go ahead and get another piece of paper towel here. I think this is Bounty. I do little half sheets, and go ahead and just wipe it all down nice and clean. And I'm going to go ahead and move on, and we'll come back and maybe give it another round. But I want you to, I mean, even now that's wiped clean now, wiped dry. Okay, Wake violin polish just does a super job on the finish. And we'll talk about the instrument in a few minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and do the bouts here, the sides of the instrument. But you can't see any of this, can you? Anyway. Use two fingers to span behind the paper towel and just kind of, it's perfect for my fingers anyway. It perfectly spans the gap and gets those sides very nice and clean. I'll wipe it all down. The top is what's really dirty right now. And when I looked inside the instrument this morning, I said, oh my goodness, it's been too many years. The tag that's in this is my tag. And when we get to talking about the instrument later, I'll give a little bit of the history of this instrument. But basically, because there was no tag in it, I went ahead and did a repair and restoration tag on it. And I did a lot of work on this instrument, and I mean a lot, to bring it up. And let me go ahead and get the other side here. Now, just getting underneath the edge of the fingerboard carefully. Don't get any on the fingerboard. Well, that's not the end of the world, but I mean, you know, the whole point is don't get anywhere close to those strings with your violin polish. Okay. I think we're going to just call it quits here. And we'll do a little bit of talking about the instrument, the history, and so forth. This is a very plain instrument. Hand-built, I believe a Vermont violin maker made it. Maybe the old man I got it from, I'm not sure. But anyway, okay, what we're going to do, I'm going to stop for a minute and kind of reset everything as far as the camera is concerned, and we're going to start talking about this instrument. I've got just the basics of this done. Oh, the one thing I didn't do, and I'll do it later because I just don't want to mess with it now in the filming process here. I'm going to go ahead and do the scroll later because I notice it is really filthy up there around the scroll. Anyway, okay, we're going to stop right now, and we're going to get back to this in a minute, and I'm going to be talking about the instrument and do some fiddle forensics. Okay, so let's talk about this violin. This violin, when I got it, was in the shop of an old man who had a violin shop down in, I think, Castleton, Vermont. I had already begun doing what I call, matter of fact, I had little calling cards called Cornhill Fiddle Works, and I started off just working on violins when I was part of Maynard's All-Time Fiddlers, and I fixed up one of mine, and then one of the guys, actually lady is Josephine Blanchard, saw that I'd fix mine and hers was messing up. And so she came to me and says, could you fix my violin? And so I fixed her violin. And I was seriously studying violin repair at that time. My next door neighbor, John Rouleau, gave me a book on violins, building, repair, and all that kind of stuff. And so I started doing some serious work on instruments. And anyway, make a long story short, the old man down there in Castleton had violins in violin cases stacked in like cordwood against the back wall. I could not believe how many instruments he had. And I went down there looking at what he had, and I kind of looked through several of them. And I found this one, and I was really interested because it was unique, and it was seriously in need of some repair. And I knew I could do the repair, so I offered him, I think, $35. And I'll show you what I did. And this was just the beginnings of the work that I did on the instrument. Turn this around here, so I get a little light on the subject. Okay. Back here, what had happened with this instrument before I got it, and this is one reason I was pretty sure I could get it for a decent price, was that the tail block had let go. If anybody's not familiar with it, inside of a violin, there's a head block and a tail block, and the tail block is right here inside. It runs along the back for about 2 inches, and it is the thing that your top is glued down to, and your back is glued. Well, actually, initially, the tail block is glued down onto the back of the instrument, and it is the thing that as you bend your ribs around, you glue it onto that tail block, and then you glue your head block. When you glue your top down, it also is coming down onto that tail block, most people don't realize is there's about 14 pounds per square inch of pressure going down on the top of this instrument as the pegs pull on the strings in order to bring them up to pitch. It all gets transferred into this tailpiece. All that pressure is coming down on the top of the instrument. Of course, your sound post inside there is countering that, but also it is still continuing to pull on this, and ultimately all that pull ends up right here in this little tail pin that goes into the tail block. Over a period of time, if the tail block is not glued down properly, or if it dries out, what happens is that the tail block will let go, and it does what I call picking up skirts. This whole back end will begin to pick up and away from the back of the instrument. And once that happens, you just got a major repair on your hands. That's all there is to it. And so I went ahead, and I wasn't dealing directly with the old man at the time. He had cancer. He wasn't coming into the shop. I was dealing with his son. And eventually we got an answer over the phone. Matter of fact, I guess his son actually let me talk to him. I said, look, I want the instrument. I'm interested in it. But here's the deal. The tail block is let go, and it's picking up skirts, and it needs a major repair. And the old man finally said, okay, I'll sell it to you for $35. So I bought it. And I brought it home, and I did all the repair work on it. I took the top off. I went ahead and re-glued the tail block down to the back. Got everything put back together. I think, as a matter of fact, I think I made this saddle right here. I think that's my saddle. Anyway, and like I said, once I got going on it, I didn't have a tailpiece for it at the time, so I made this tailpiece. This is a piece of rosewood that I went ahead and custom made a tailpiece. It kind of looks out of place because the rest of the instrument is all set up with all ebony fittings, as it should be. But it's what I made, and it's functional, so I've gone ahead and left it on there over all these years. So anyway, I repaired that, got that all set up, and when it came time to do some recognition of who did what, there was no ticket in the instrument, and so I went ahead and put my own ticket in it. Okay, matter of fact, we'll do that right now. I'll show the ticket, which is no big deal. Okay, right. If I can get on the other side of the light here. There we go. Okay. It says Repairs and Restoration by Randall M. Gardner, Pittsford, Vermont, 1987. And so it has held up remarkably well over the years. Nothing has let go. It's all in good shape. But in the meantime, we're going to talk now, after getting kind of all the basics of this, where it came from and everything. We're going to talk about the instrument and do a little bit of fiddle forensics. This is a handmade instrument, almost certainly. This, you look at these corners. These are not the corners of a let's put it this way. They're not refined corners, as in, like a Strad copy or something like that, which are much finer. These are very, very squared off and so forth. And for years, I thought the top was done by somebody else. And now I'm definitely not thinking that. Now I'm definitely thinking that the top was made by the same guy that made the rest of the instrument. For one thing, let's just start here on the top. These F-holes are very definitely stylized. These are not classic F-holes. They have a sweep to them. It's almost like, I don't know what you want to call it, almost a Baroque look to it rather than a classical. So anyway, very interesting. They're matched, although they're slightly different. But they're this is not your classic F-holes. I want you to see, especially on the difference on this one. Look at this. This is rounded off here, coming up out of that into that little curly Q. This is squared off to a certain extent. Anyway, very definitely the work of somebody who is not a professional, but he still had some skill about them because, like I said, this arch is very nicely done. Very nicely done. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Okay, again, we're into the forensics. We're moving on to the back here just for a minute because we're going to come back to the front. It's a one-piece back. Okay, one-piece back. And not great curly maple, not hardly any figure to it. Basically, up here is about all the figure you've got. But again, it's well done. Here's a telltale. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to try to zero in. Okay, you see the purfling lines? That's not purfling. That is scribed on there. How scribed? That is like a pilot pen, or anyway, that's drawn on. Those are not purflings. You know how you can tell? When you see the grain run right through the purfling, because purfling is an entity in and of itself that is inlaid into the surface. That is not. That is drawn on, every bit of it. And matter of fact, up here in the corners, you can see where, now that one, not so much. That's drawn on. By the way, nice job. I don't know that I could do it that nice, but let's see, right down here in the corner. You can see where he crossed over when he came up out of the back of the instrument. He actually, and started the new one, he actually started there opposite, and it's not perfectly even with each other. Anyway, kind of interesting. Makes it look like a purfling, but it's not a purfling. Okay. And then on the top, there is no purfling. And for years I thought, well, somebody did the back and the sides and the scroll and all that, and then added on the top later. No, not at all. This is done by the same man, or woman. I'm guessing man, because of how masculine this is. You look at the squaring off of these of the corners, and they're identical. That is kind of big and bold. This one, look at this. Look at this. Okay? And then you go to the top, and look at that. It's identical. Yeah, same guy did it. Absolutely. He just never finished it out and did a purfling on the top. This is spruce. Very fine grained spruce. Not bad. But I mean, it has flaws in it. It's like he did use the spruce that he could get. This, I think, was either he filled that hole. This may have been where there was actually a spruce twig. Either that or he filled that with a dowel or something. It's a flawed instrument in its materials. Not at all the work of somebody who is getting the top of the line materials to make their instrument with. And this is it's not a break or anything like that. It's where the grain is pulled up as he is working with it, and he just sanded it out and finished it out and left it just like it was. Okay, that's it for the body of the instrument. Like I said, in the sides, I think the thing that fakes you out is that the top looks so different because the finish on it is different, and I think he may have done that at a later time, but you look at that, and it doesn't look a whole lot like that, except that the hand is the same. The same person did the instrument, I believe. Okay, we're going to talk about the scroll. I love this scroll. This scroll is extremely rugged, masculine, very well done. Very well done. It's not a Stradivari or anything like that, but I love it's just very bold and masculine. The fluting on it is just darn near perfect. Let's look at the back of it. Let's look at the back of it. Just really nice, and I love it. I mean, he ends it very nicely down there at the bottom of that fluting. Anyway, all in all, a unique instrument. I'm glad I bought it. For $35, it's a bargain. And like I said, it's an instrument for me to grow into. We'll do some more on this in just a minute. But I'm just so glad that all those years ago I took the time when I was going down to Russell Flagg's house, to take this instrument down to him. And I said, "Oh, by the way, would you see what you can do with this instrument?" And boy, when he played it, it was just amazing. So, all right, I think that's it for the fiddle forensics here. I hope you've enjoyed that, and it's been a delight to me over the years to try to play this on again, off again. My thing has been that it's kind of set in the case a lot, because I much prefer playing my German Strads. I've had now this is the third one I've got right now, and I just really enjoy the sound of them. This one I need to grow into. One last thing here on the fiddle forensics, and I forgot to do this earlier. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. You pretty sure. Okay. When he initially cut this neck, he cut it too shallow, and he actually had to put in a wedge right there. You see the wedge? In order to bring it up to the proper pitch, and every violin has to have a certain tilt back of the neck in order to get the fingerboard at the right height, in order to get the strings at the right height. Everything has got to be just so. And I don't know why he kind of messed up on cutting the neck initially, but I'll tell you one thing about it. He did a superb job in cutting that wedge. I mean, there's almost no oxygen there. Did a really good job getting that wedge cut and put in there, and it put it at just the right height. I mean, it's just it's darn near perfect as far as playing is concerned. So, all right, enough on that, and we're done with the fiddle forensics. First of all, I want to apologize for this rather pathetic attempt that I'm going to make at playing the Castleton violin, as I call it. Actually, just because I got it down there. Anyway, I just wish Russell Flagg was alive to have played it for you, because I mean, it sounded just absolutely amazing when he played it. I'm going to be playing the Ashokan Farewell, and not well. So that's that. Also, it was just a note of correction. When I mentioned that the tail block is glued down to the back of the instrument, what I should have said was that the tail block and the entire ribs are all glued down to the back of the instrument before the top goes on. It's just, the tail block is just part of the whole rib assembly that I call it ribs. But you know, the sides of the instrument are all completely done and ready to go, and then glued down to the back before the top goes on. So anyway, just that correction, and we'll let you listen to this, and then we're out of here. Bye.